Can you imagine what it would be like to know what the future holds? To have the advantage over everyone around you? To spend your life 10 steps ahead of the competition? My name is Sabrina. I'm 62 years old and I've discovered a way to travel back in time and start over. I've always known that gateways into other worlds and times existed. I researched them, watched countless documentaries about the lengths to which our government will go to protect them, and spent the majority of my young adult life discreetly searching for one of them. In November 2016, after years of relentless sleuthing, I have found one of the gateways, and who would have thought that it would be in my own backyard? I am literally beside myself, both excited and terrified by the prospect of getting a do-over. Although, I must admit to feeling extremely apprehensive about taking the plunge. I mean, what if something goes wrong and I end up stuck in some strange dimension somewhere for the rest of my life? So I guess the million-dollar question is it worth the risk? I believe it is. I had a happy childhood. I loved growing up with 3 brothers and 2 sisters. Some of my best memories are of the holidays we spent together. So, if it works as anticipated, I'll end up in my hometown, where I'll get to spend Thanksgiving and Christmas with my family again. And then I get to ring in the new year with them and begin again. Sounds pretty good to me. I opened the bottle of Chardonnay sitting on my dining room table, filled my goblet to the brim, downed it and declared, "It's settled. I'm gonna do it before I lose my nerve." It was an easy enough decision to make. There's nothing keeping me here. All of my siblings are dead. I never married or had children. I'm a retired spinster with nothing but this old house to tend to, and no one will miss me when I'm gone. It's a cold winter morning when I stroll out into my backyard and casually step out of the present day into the past, back to a place in time where genetically modified food is unheard of, a time before computers or cell phones, or the influx of drugs soon to invade the city streets, or the rise of terrorism, or the countless mass murders and murder-suicides that in the coming years will become a staple on the nightly news. The year is 1970. I'm back in the Motor City, and I'm 16 again. The first stop for this petite blonde with blue eyes is the Red Barn for one of their famous burgers. Oh, the joy of eating real beef again. As I savor the burger, fries, and chocolate shake, all feels right with the world. I can't wait to get home and see my mom and dad, and my brothers and sisters again. This time, I'll make different choices, better choices, and maybe this time around I'll even get married and have children. I can't go wrong, really, because if for some reason I don't like my new life, I'll just come back and start over, as many times as it takes to get it right. Having finished my lunch, I tore out in the direction of my home, a beautifully landscaped, split-level colonial-style home nestled in a cul-de-sac on a street called Hollyberry Lane. "They're going to take one look at me and know," I mumbled repeatedly as I made my way to my childhood home at a pace somewhere between a power walk and a full-on sprint. When I finally arrived, all I wanted to do was rush inside and fall into my mother's arms, but something in the pit of my stomach held me at bay. I paused behind the old oak tree 2 doors down, just in time to see myself come walking out of the house, hand in hand with my mom. "But this can't be," I whispered. I'd always assumed that my other self would cease to exist if I ever made it back. I watched the 2 of them, or should I say, the 2 of us, climb into Dad's Ford Mustang and drive off. I can feel the panic set in, desperation flooding into my being. I need time to think, and I know the perfect place to hide out until I can wrap my mind around this situation. When I'm sure that no one else is home, I slip around back, climb into Bobby's treehouse, and stretch out on his old sleeping bag. It's the fall of the year, so no one will climb up and catch me unaware. This is definitely a problem. We can't both remain in this realm together. One of us has to go. So the billion-dollar question is, how bad do I want to stay? I know what the answer is as I surrender to sleep. I just can't bring myself to say it. It's Sunday morning when I open my eyes. My body is cold and stiff, but my mind is clear and concise. I have no choice but to act, so I head out to the Coney Island for breakfast to formulate a plan. Over eggs and toast, I decide on tomorrow, because there are only 3 days until the Thanksgiving Day weekend begins, and I have no intention of sleeping in that treehouse for 3 more days. The rest of the day goes by in a blur. I remain awake all night, unsure whether or not I can do what needs to be done, but I can't see any way to get around it. I slip around the treehouse and take my place behind the old oak tree at 7:45. And just as I had anticipated, at precisely 8 o'clock, the front door opens and the other me bounds off the porch and hurries off to school. There's no need to follow her, since I know the route she'll take, and the best place to catch her alone. I hurry around back and down the alley to get out ahead of her and set the trap. You see, I know that the other me plans to skip school and spend the day in the park with her 2 best friends. My adrenaline is pumping as I crouch in the bushes and wait for the perfect moment. I must not hesitate, because her, or should I say my friends, will be along soon. Like clockwork, the other me rounded the bend to scout out the perfect spot. She never saw it coming, and I'd like to think that she never felt a thing. I remained unsure about whether or not I could do it, right up until the moment I hit her as hard as I could in the back of the head with a brick. I'll spare you the gory details of how I disposed of the body, but it's done. Now there's nothing standing between me and my new beginning. It was a glorious day at the park with the girls, and the holidays are exactly as I remember. The only downside to this fresh start are the nightmares. I am tormented day and night by my own face. I cannot bear to look into the mirror or close my eyes at night to sleep, and I fear that even if I were to go back and start again, the nightmares will never leave me. So the trillion-dollar question is, am I to live the next 40 or 50 years in torment? This is definitely a problem, because I cannot abide it. As I lay in my room watching the shadows dance across the ceiling, I know the answer, but can't bring myself to say it. 3 days later, when the house is empty, when Dad has gone off to work and Mom has gone off to the market, and my siblings have all gone off to school, I swallow an entire bottle of Mom's sleeping pills, and in my final moments, one last question begs to be answered. Was it worth it?